Ironic. I read my agenda off my phone. Oh.
Last time it was.
Oh, they all.
It's no good, right?
Oh, yeah, I forgot. I'm like, all right.
Yeah, okay, I think, but, you know.
Yeah. All right, good evening, everybody. It is 6:30, so we'll call the meeting to order. And we'll begin as we always do with playing the national anthem. So if you're able, please stand. We would like to begin by respectfully acknowledging that the town of Shelburne resides within the traditional territory and ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, including the Ojibwe, Potawatomi, Chippewa, and the people of the Three Fires Confederacy. These traditional territories on which we live, work, play, and learn are steeped in rich indigenous history and traditions, and it is with this statement that we declare to honor and respect the past and present connection of Indigenous peoples with this land, its waterways, and resources. Any declarations of pecuniary interest? Okay, so that takes us to the minutes from our February 9th meeting. Can I have a motion to receive those minutes as circulated? Councillor Sample, seconded by Councillor Fegan. Any discussion on those? All in favor? Carried. All right, so the first couple of items tonight fall under the heading of planning public meeting. These two matters are both applications to consider variances under the sign bylaw. To be clear, this is not a statutory meeting under the Planning Act. And as such, there are no formal notice requirements as we do under those meetings. But much the same as we do with those statutory public meetings, we will have a presentation from our planner, Steve Weaver, in respect of each application, and then after that, there will be an opportunity for members of council as well as any members of the public who are here to offer any comments or ask any questions before council makes a decision. So, Steve, I guess we're going to start with the first one for 801 Ojibwe. Correct. Okay.
Yeah. And I have a few slides just so you have the visuals. As we look at this request, the request for 801 Ojibwe is very similar to the request that was previously considered by council years ago for the plaza across the road, where the similarly the same operator and developer has buildings with multiple commercial units, and some of those commercial units have facades that face in multiple directions, where they, like many plazas of this style, prefer to put signs on multiple sides of the building, and there is some merit to that where you have visibility from multiple sides to help with people navigating to the plaza, finding the business that they want to visit, and actually locating that business within the plaza. So in our report, we've outlined the request and then recommended some variants that we feel are acceptable, although it is a bit less than what was requested. So if you can go to the next slide, it's a bit of a dated photo here, when they still had topsoil piled in the site for the subdivision development. Since then, the building facing Highway 89 or along Highway 89 has been constructed. And they're in the process of doing the interior fit outs for those individual units. Many of those units have been completed, or a few of them have been completed, and some are still under construction and some are still available for lease. The next slide shows the site plan that was approved for the property. It's a phased development. Again, the south building is the one that has been constructed and partially leased out and developed to date. And the associated parking, landscaping, waste facilities, and loading areas and all rest have been built. Phase 2 is the north building, which construction hasn't commenced on that yet. Purpose of the variance from the sign bylaw is just for the south building at this point. We're anticipating that when the north building comes along, that as they start to get tenant interest in that, there'll be similar requests where they'll look to have signs on south side facing into the plaza, the north side facing towards Red Elm, and then probably on either end as well. You can see there's a number of different tenants, restaurants, and a bank in a nail salon as well in the south building. What we asked the applicant to do is to establish what the appropriate or what standards would deal with both of the end units in terms of the number of signs requested for those. The unique aspect of the end units being to have an additional wall facing east or west, where an additional sign could be considered. And then primary fascia sign being the one facing north into the plaza, and then a secondary fascia sign facing towards the highway. And so the request is outlined in the table. Go to the next slide. This is the visual that was provided for the building elevations and resubmitted again as part of the variance request. You can see when they measure the size of the signs based on the building elevation submitted with the site plan application, which are just placeholders for the actual signs. They're indicating 20% plus or minus on the north elevation, 15% plus or minus on the south. Go to the next slide. On the east and west, indicating a larger sign on the west elevation based on the size of the and design of that facade, and then a smaller one on the east side, which faces towards the stormwater pond, not toward the street. And based on the building design of that facade, just utilizing part of that building base. Go to the next slide. So now we have actual tenants and individual tenant-based sign designs that have been submitted. The firehouse subs is identified here because it's one of the most straightforward ones. This one is simple. It has on the north elevation complied with the maximum 10%. It just gives you an idea of the size that you can achieve with that 10%. And you can see the lines on either side of it. That just indicates the width of that unit. So to me, that's a reasonable sign. That one complies with the sign bylaw. No real issues. The Scotiabank one has a lot of signs. Not only the business name, the Scotiabank word on 3 sides of the building, the north, the south, and the west, but also the tower that protrudes from the building with the logo. And then in addition, on the south elevation is an additional Scotiabank logo as well. So logos facing 3 directions, and one on the building, 2 on the tower, and then a smaller incidental logo beside the ATM on the north elevation. Go to the next slide. So all of those requests are captured in the table. Again, the left-hand columns indicate the maximum permitted by the bylaw in terms of the number of signs for each unit, and the proposed signs for each unit on the right-hand side. And what we found is that when we compared the requested number of signs and percent, it didn't align the percent of facade area that was requested actually exceeds what the actual sign designs require. So in other words, the request that was submitted provides a bit of an over and above buffer to make it very easy for them to fit any sign essentially on the north and south elevations, and then on the east and west elevations in the case of the two end units. So if we go to the next slide. So again, there are two primary reasons for the variance. One is increasing the number of signs based on the number of sides of the building that they want to have a sign on for each unit. All of the interior units, the request is to increase the number of facing signs from 1 to 2. That's pretty straightforward. One on the north side, one on the south side. Makes sense. You have one facing the highway, one facing into the plaza. That is what we allowed in case of the plaza to the west, with the proviso that the secondary or the side of the plaza that faces away from the interior of the plaza has to be smaller than the one facing in the plaza. The other is for the two ends, where the request on the east end is to allow a sign for the Osmond's restaurant, where they don't actually have a street adjacent to them, they have a stormwater pond. But it does make some sense there because you can see that side of the building as pointed down along the highway. And really, it's not creating any impact because there's no homes or other things that would be impacted by that to the east. The one on the west is again Unit 16, the Scotiabank. Couple of issues with this one. One, they're looking for one on each business frontage, so they actually do have 3 business frontages. One facing north towards Red Elm for the interior of the plaza, one facing west for the Ojibway, and one facing south. But in addition to that, they built the tower, which we knew at the time of municipal approval for this building that that's kind of a standard for Scotiabank, that they put a logo on that tower as well. Starbucks did the same thing, you may recall. And then they do have a combination of the name and logo building spots themselves. So the issue there is not just the number of signs, but the amount of area that they're taking up. And a related issue with that one, and I just confirmed by driving over to the plaza, is that they've actually installed them already. They have no permission from the town or county building department to do that. So we're disappointed that that happened. Based on discussing that with our coordinator, she said she made that crystal clear to them that they go up until they have their building permit and sign permit until the variance is in place. But they did obtain their MTO sign permit. So as a point of comparison, MTO usually being a pretty highly regulatory authority as it respects anything along the highway, they allow the signs as you see on the building today. What we've recommended in our recommendation for this is setting aside the issue for a moment that they've installed them without permission from the town, that what they've requested in terms of the size of signs permitted needs to come down. What they requested, what that would mean is if the variants were approved as we recommended it, they would have to reduce the size of the logos of the tower, which are quite big. They're also fairly bright. They're backlit and in the dark, they stand out quite a bit. Versus if you compare it, say, to the Starbucks building where they have that same design with the tower, the logos are much smaller there, but still easily recognizable. So we do feel that the Scotiabank has unfortunately kind of gone a little overkill with their signage. And although it's a fairly standard design, as you see in other communities, that it's fine with bylaw or what we're recommending variance. We do recommend, of course, a condition that the other permits required or from the MTO county, of course, must be obtained before any signs are installed. As I mentioned, the ones that have been installed to date have obtained the MTO permits. The ones other than the Scotiabank have obtained the building permit. But there is one other sign for the Stacked restaurant on the south side of the building, which was not supposed to go in until this variance was addressed. and all other requirements as they pertain to backlighting and content of the signage and all of that, how it's affixed to the building will have to be met. So those are what we recommended. We did receive some comments, from, Randy James, who's here as well. And she has flagged that the number of signs, if you count up Scotiabank plus the logos, is actually more than 3. Now we have, when we consider a fascia sign, we looked at it, for example, the one facing west. There's the name Scotiabank, and then there's also the logo on the tower. So we've added up the area of those two things to compare the total area of those versus the maximum permitted. And then there's also on the flip side of that tower, there's the one facing east. There's not a building facade they could utilize facing east. It's just this tower, which is specifically constructed for these signs. So we added that to the total area of west fascia signs to determine whether it complies with the bylaw. And as I mentioned, it actually doesn't. It exceeds the maximum permitted for that west facade. If we wanted to be more specific, we could say that those are each individual signs unto themselves as well and require them to submit a further variance to deal with the tower signs as an added provision. So we will have to go, since those signs are now installed, we'll have to go back to them and advise them that A, they weren't allowed to go up. B, they're not really addressed in the size that they've installed is not addressed in their application. And they have to make a further request to seek council permission from the sign bylaw to permit those 2 signs on the tower. I think we will continue to advise them that, from our perspective, that the size of those logos is too big, and if they're going to make that request, they need to also reduce the size of the be a bit of a throwaway in the signs that are installed, but that's well, their mistake for doing it ahead of time. Aside from that, the rest of the units are fairly straightforward. The recommendation again is that we don't permit 20% of the north facade, but rather it's 15%, which is a bit of an increase in the variance from the bylaw, which makes sense for a plaza of this style. Again, it's not really facing anything other than the inside of the plaza, so it's a reasonably sized sign based on the example for firehouse subs. And 10%, so smaller on the south side, facing the highway. So that way, every business still has the opportunity to use both sides of the building, but it's a little more subtle on the south side and not as imposing, but easily recognizable from the highway itself. And again, just to make this point crystal clear, in order for those 2 tower signs for the Scotiabank to be approved, that would have to come back again unless they change it to make it fit within the total right or west facade. So maybe I'll pause there then and ask if there are any questions about this report. Okay. Questions from council?
Well, just mainly, that's kind of the guidelines we set out for the plaza that has Starbucks in it, right?
Yeah.
It was like a 15% on the front and a 10% that faced Wigglesworth Plaza or the road.
With that
Something
one,
like that.
it was left a little bit smaller. I think we did go to 15% in facing into the plaza, but because the other side of the plaza actually faces another plaza.
Yeah,
We felt, and on the street,
too bad.
we kept the smaller ones to 5%.
Oh, wow, you
Yeah,
did small.
so they're smaller.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Okay,
But if they had been facing the highway,
yeah, then a little bigger is understandable at
Yeah.
that point. Okay, I just wanna make sure that we're sort of staying fair, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's still kind of owned, I believe, by the same corporation
it
or
is, it's
whatever.
all part of the
But,
same.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I guess every individual store, you know, we wanna make sure that we're fair to those.
Yeah.
Who are leasing the building.
And then for the buildings with the food land.
Yeah.
That one does have, I think 50% on the front end. So
Okay,
if
and
it's
so
bigger,
that's-
because it does change to your design.
Like at 15%, that's a decent size, so they want 20?
Yes, and again, I think it's
It's
just,
gonna be
they
sticking
weren't
over.
actually gonna put signs in that large, it just gives them the ultimate flexibility to
Right,
do the whole.
Potentially do it though.
Yeah,
So we may have one building that has like a 20% coverage and the others all have like 15, and then it looks weird. So I'd rather, yeah, be more consistent and not
Yeah.
huge. It's just, not make it look ridiculous, but, okay, all right, that's what I was sort of concerned with. And then I guess the other concern to me was also Scotiabank with a lot of signage, and I was like, dude, we know you're there. Like,
Yes.
big, giant, tall, red tower, like, we know it's you. Because I assume they're going to be putting in window decals and doing some form of also, you know, the red on the top of the windows and whatnot that I've seen in some of the other banks, right? Yeah, so that's more signage per se, right? So, yeah, I like when I read through and I was like, okay, they're recommending what I was sort of thinking, so I love that, that's great.
Councillor Sherry?
Just a quick question about the installer. Is this the same installer, the same contractor that installed the signs for the other plaza? Or is it a different contractor?
It's different sign design company, we don't know who the contractor is, and although the request has been made by one sign company, we asked that they do it comprehensively for the whole. thing.
Right.
But in actuality, each tenant is using their own sign designer and installer. So it varies throughout the units.
Okay, so Jones isn't.
No, Jones is just kind of taking the lead and here's our request for the building as a whole, but then each tenant has its own sign designer and installer.
Because they can't, you know, if they were not they can't necessarily plead ignorance. You know what I mean?
I'm not sure which sign company, if it was the applicant or another
Yeah.
one actually, or what contractor actually went ahead and installed it. Who gave them the approval to do that?
Right.
That don't want to point fingers.
No, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate that, you know, to your point, there's gonna be some throwaway likely, but you know, I think we tend to be a pretty reasonable cooperative bunch. I don't think I'm gonna shed an awful lot of tears though, if they have to take it down and redo it when they went ahead.
Yeah.
Without approval, I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think this is their first rodeo, and they ought to have known better, so.
Well, and we're being good
Yeah.
about allowing that tower to be part of the west.
Considering a variance.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
and be part of that west facing coverage area, right? We could, like you said, make them come back and treat that as, you know, a sign on, yeah, 2 additional signs.
Yeah.
Which then we could say, no, we don't want those signs.
Yeah.
So I think we're being fair there, but yeah, I mean, I feel a little bad that you have to take it down, but really should have waited like you were told, so. Yeah.
And anybody else on council? I don't feel that.
What's the providers? They're not, you're not getting that. You don't do things like that. If any other company or citizen were to do something of that nature there.
So it'd probably be fine.
We'd have them pulled down, not only pulled down, we'd likely find them
There'd be a
on
fine.
top, so I don't feel bad for them at all, they're lucky. As far as I'm concerned, that they're even being reasonable with it. And if they don't wanna be reasonable with us, then we will go after them.
Yeah, the old adage that it's better to beg for forgiveness is not always true.
Yeah.
Public comments or questions?
I assume that you received my comments and the addendum saying that it was there, right?
Yeah.
I guess my main concern is they are separate signs, the logo signs and the station signs. Signs that are, the letter signs are in a sign band, which is where they should be. The logo signs, if they hadn't been within the sign band, I would go along with the fact that yes, they should be included in the area, but when they're a completely different location, they really are a separate sign and shouldn't be considered as part of that main sign that they have on that side, on both sides, west and the south. I guess I'm also concerned that on the south side, there is a separate logo that below sign band as well, so the same thing applies to those 3 large logos.
Yeah.
The other thing is one of the logos is facing east, And there's no indication in the report from either the sign company or planner specifically identifying that that is on facing east. So there's really technically no request from Scotiabank for a sign facing east.
The one on the tower.
Tower.
So from my perspective, my experience, I have done many sign variance applications. And I have in fact led the redrafting of the sign bylaw. So I have a lot of experience in this. And there is definitely at least 6 signs and definitely arguably a 7th sign on the north facing facade. The logos should be treated as individual signs separate from the word signs and name of the company sign. So they were not honest in their application about what they were applying for. And I think that is just unethical. And they shouldn't be rewarded for that kind of behavior. So I support the fact that the planner has asked them to reduce what they have asked for, because certainly they were very large signs that they were asking for. And I would hope that council would, recognize that there is a fairness need here. I mean, the other tenants want to know that they're treated equally, and that consideration should be given that there is more equality in terms of the signage Scotiabank gets. The other item is that there is a pylon sign that has not yet been applied for. It is south of the building and will face east and west. So the assumption is that Scotiabank will also want signage on the pylon side. So I think there are some options to discuss with Scotiabank directly for their consultants, in fact, is Scotiabank's preference. But obviously Scotiabank is the ones that are dictating what they want of their building. So ultimately they will be the ones that, are involved in this negotiation, because there needs to be a reasonableness and an understanding that they can't, just because they have a standard approach, doesn't mean that they have to have that approach in every circumstance. I have been involved in circumstances for large corporations like Tim Hortons, for instance, wanted to put a building in a heritage center, and were asked to completely change not only their building design, but their signage, and were required to do so if they wanted approvals, and they complied because they recognize the importance of being straightforward and meet the requirements of the municipality and what has to be done to align with what else is going on around. So I'm hopeful that there will be some more negotiation with Scotiabank and their sign company to come up with a more appropriate sign package. And that consideration when the pylon sign comes in, that the recognition of what allowed this to be given for the building signage is taken into consideration.
So Steve, from a practical perspective, like you'll go back to the applicant after we make a decision, and then have a discussion with them and make sure that they're in compliance, and if they have to make a further application, then they'll.
Yes, for sure. Now, there is different components to the recommendation. And one of them does deal specifically with the Scotiabank sign. It's number 1, which says, for the west facade of the building, Unit 16, Scotiabank provided the total fascia sign area on the building facades do not exceed the lesser of 10% of the building architectural elevation of the building or unit, or 10 square meters of total sign area. And then the other is, no, I think That's the only one that affects the Scotia.
specifically.
Yes, so if that is approved tonight, that would allow them to have essentially a tower. And the tower signs, they have to advise, are you wanting that the council to request to have their own? As if 2 additional signs plus exceeding the total size that was already buried, or are you going to shrink them sufficient in size? To fit within the 10%.
Yeah, and I mean, personally, I kind of like that. I mean, presenting them with a couple of options to say, you know, we're willing to work with you to a point, but you know, how you determine how you're going to fill up that permitted space is up to you. So, you know, here's a couple of options. Councillor Fegan?
How do the decals, if we want to call them that, for window decals come into play in this? Because we know that this variance is specifically for the permanent signs.
Yeah.
How is the bylaw in effect right now as far as then adding into window decals as well? Because we all know Scotiabank is notorious, those are gonna be completely covered.
Yeah.
So how, we need to know, what are we looking at, including those as far as the signage?
Yeah, and most of the other tenants have had that as well. The store has completely covered over and it will say like wine, spirits, beer. The sign bylaw deals with that sort of thing more as it's not the business name or the logo, it's the incidental sign. Now, very clear that incidental sign, the road doesn't give specific sign dimensions or criteria for how big they can be. They have to be incidental, not only in terms of words that they're using, not dominant in terms of size. So we've been using, you know, basically our judgment as to whether we feel that it's small enough and of the appropriate content that it can be used as incidental bylaw.
So when they want to put in, those window vinyl, then they have to come back.
I mean, if it's doing essentially another big logo or something that in our view should be considered under the bylaw as a fascia sign or another type of sign that defines the bylaw that they would have to meet regulations for that type of sign. There's no incidental.
So it is, in essence, if they wanted to put those vinyl up, they have to come back for another permit.
Yeah, it depends on what it says, right, and how big it is.
If they comply with the bylaw,
Yeah,
I mean, if they comply, if they're looking for something over and above what the bylaw.
Yes.
Then we'd be back to the similar sort of discussion, right?
part of this is also the need for these variances, as was discussed back with the first project forward, is the bylaw simply is not designed to accommodate this type of project.
Yeah, and I think we talked about that last time. but,
Yeah,
I mean,
it doesn't
in
even
fairness-
deal with
Yeah.
tower signs and what happens if they're affixed to the building and you put a logo on top. And that is a type of sign design that's not more mainstream, but it should have some limits to it as well. So as we continue to move forward, obviously we're going to actually recommend that you sign more that deals with that kind of things and sets more.
This sign bylaw was enacted when I was still in high school.
Yeah.
The town has changed somewhat since those days, so I mean, in fairness to the commercial enterprises, I mean, yeah, I think at that time, it more or less contemplated, you know, kind of the commercial strip on Main Street, so I mean, yeah, I'm perfectly content in granting reasonable variances to a sign bylaw that's that old, and I mean, from my perspective, I think what you recommended here in terms of the conditions, right? A good balance. Like I said, we want to be cooperative. We want to, you know, encourage commercial development, but you know, there are certain limits to that as well. So,
Well, my next suggestion, I think it's time that we update a sign bylaw to fit commercial development within the town.
Steve's gonna add it to his list.
Can I just make a quick observation about the proposed pylon sign and its location? Do they really need that sign, seeing as how? With all of the facade signs?
They haven't indicated a plan to install that yet. When the one for the plaza to the west was installed, that actually did end up having to come to council as well for height relief, I believe it was.
I don't see if you've got
Yeah.
all of those facade signs facing south.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, I would argue the location of that sign is well past you know, if you're driving, it's great if you're driving west, because you see the sign, and okay, that's the intersection, but driving east.
Yeah, like, oh, turn that,
No, yeah, we should have turned,
Should
a
have.
while ago.
right?
Yeah, so I would say the proposed pylon sign is redundant. If we consider the fact that
Yeah.
all of the facade signs are, at basic south.
And it's possible that they may be holding off on installing a pylon sign until the next building is constructed, and until they're less visible
Oh, that
from the
makes
highway,
sense.
then, you know, to make sure people traveling by know that there's another business pack on the other building.
They're not
going to have that.
So
We're
you're
not
not
gonna fix that, right, that makes sense.
You could impose a condition as opposed to say no ground sign is permitted until the next building is
Yeah.
constructed, and then put
Could we-
limits on that.
Could we put a limit on that pylon sign would be limited to that
Do that,
extra building?
yeah,
Extra
do that
building?
other building.
Is that a possibility?
Yeah. That's what I would do, this can only be for the building that's not as visible on the road. And those would be the advertisements on that, those, that in there. Yeah.
Okay, what's the will of the council? I mean,
Yeah.
these recommendations are here. Somebody
Like the phone.
want to make a motion, Councilor Vegan,
Yeah, I would put suggestions for.
seconder for that? Councilor Bishardi? Okay. All right, so in essence, the motion is to receive the report and to approve the request for variance based on the four conditions that Steve has outlined there. I'm not gonna read them all. But they're all contained there. Any final questions or comments? All in favor? That's carried. Okay. All right. Now, the next one is for 407 on Sound Street.
Yeah, just a few slides for that one as well. This one's a bit simpler, and we do have a representative as well. Ruth from Warwick Signs is here as well. Our company has designed the sign. And really, the need for the variant for this one is for a different reason. It's not because the number of signs, or the size of it, it's strictly the light. The sign, again, probably a function of its age, didn't consider LED panels or any type of more modern lighting. In the downtown, it wants lighting facing at the sign and illuminating it that way. And outside downtown, it allows for backlighting, but only of a certain kind that are prescribed in the bylaw. It also does not allow for animated signs or scrolling text. Now, the applicant has agreed that they can agree to a condition that if this is approved, that it would not allow for any moving text. So again, just to go over this one for 407 Owen Sound Street. Go to the next slide. You can see the location here. Now, again, the air photo is a little out of date. There is a new, yeah, that's one. There's a new dental office that's been erected on the south side of the property. And the existing dental office was moved, and that's where the parking will be on the north side. That's all in accordance with the site plan that was approved years ago. The next slide. There you can see it under construction from this past summer. One of the unique considerations for this property is that it is more in a residential area on the other side. So one of the reasons we wanted to recommend some conditions attached to the lighting of the sign. There has been one prior variance for this type of LED panel, and it was for the independent grocery store, where they do have a limited sign on the pylon sign for some scrolling text or some kind of sale or event that they're advertising. Different location context, though, of course, it doesn't really affect anybody over there. And MTO permitted it without any concern from a traffic highway perspective. In this case, that kind of moving text sign and changing lighting could very well impact the neighbors. So again, the applicant agreeing that there should be a condition that they won't change the text text that will be stationary. Now they may change the content of the text, but once it's changed, it will change frequently. On the next slide, the location of the sign was shown on the site plan that was approved, so you can see new building on the south side, the driveway will be shifted more to the north side, and the proposed sign location meets all of the setback requirements for a ground sign for the sign bylaw, and the height and size requirements. Again, it really is the lighting of the sign that needs relief in order to permit that type of lighting. Next slide. So it is actually a really nice looking sign. Some elements of it will have backlighting, the name of the business, so that it'd be not very bright. The concern is more with the brightness and capability of having moving text for the LED display area. But again, the applicant is agreeing to the recommendations in our report, which would be that the LED panel can't have any moving text, and that it has to be set to the hours of operation prescribed. So that I think is on the next slide. For the next slide, the hours of operation between 11, not operated between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m., so not overnight, and that it would be set at 80% brightness, so that it's not utilizing its full 100% LED lighting potential. And then the last one is just about the not having any moving elements. It will still require a building permit from the county to install it on a proper footing. But aside from that, that's an overview of the application and the nature of the request and our recommendation. We'll have to take any questions on it. Oh, and we did receive one objection to it as well. The concern was from one of the neighboring residential properties that the lighting, it could shine into their windows. Used to have those windows as into a bed. So their concern was that maybe their blinds would not be sufficient to block that light. We feel that we're addressing that through the condition about the hours of when the sign can be illuminated, and making sure that it's not on overnight.
All right. Councilor Pichardi?
Just a quick one about the brightness. 8% is, for some manufacturers of lighting, and the difference between 80% brightness and 100% brightness isn't that much of a variance. I know we put even the walkway strips in the, and I mean, 20 minimum brightness is actually too bright. Walkway for the grace tip, like also, I would probably, I mean, I'd more be stressed or more be subject to consultation as a, I mean, 80%, some manufacturers, 80%, 100% is, you know. So that would be my concern. So the applicants were open to working with the community and the neighborhood to establish a acceptable brightness. That would be much more as opposed to putting an 80% number on that. That's just my.
Right, yeah, and I think you touched on the second aspect of that condition was that if it is the source of, reasonable complaint that would consult with the owner about further using it. It's really hard to say how bright it will be. So like tonight you're seeing it on
and winter time.
Yeah, overkill, or is it reasonable?
Yeah, at winter time you'll have a lot more light bounce off of white snow than you will off of green grass. So,
right.
That could also affect. Anyway,
Well, Ruth happens to be here.
Oh, yeah.
Any thoughts on that? Ruth?
The sign is 5,000 nits. Outright.
Yep. Knits.
Nits.
Okay.
That's measured.
Okay.
So the sign is 7,000. And it's got that extra 2,000, so that when it's really, really sunny, you still see it. Now, I don't know if you noticed, sometimes you'll drive by a sign, you can barely see it on a nice sunny day. You only see 2,000. So, 5,000 is the sun, and then, of course, like you say, with
So-
the snow, there's a reflection. So at 80%, we're only playing it at 6,000. There is a light sensor
But-
on the sign. So the light sensor senses how many nits are there, and it balances it accordingly. So if it's a really gray, cloudy day, it will never play 100%, it'll be playing at about 60%. So there are definitely lights on the sign, sensors on it, and that's the benefit of these signs. If you get complaints, I can turn it down to 7. I have a sign running at 70%, and at night, so you're thinking 8%, at night they run at 5%. So at night, it's just gonna look like you're driving by a normal sign. There's not, and I'm also going to, which I did with your town, people, train them on not to use a white background. In order to get white, you want every dime. That's how you get white. So number one, you burn your sign up very fast. And number two, it's your eye goes to white, it's blind. So I don't know, I think your sign's off now, but you notice that over the last probably 8 months, they've had a dark background. Way more subtle, they're not as bright, so that they'll be doing that. And then you can schedule it, get a complaint, you can schedule it so that, and I can even schedule one side of the house, I can schedule that to turn off, on. If I can, it's all computer, I can do whatever.
Sounds like they're willing to work with us in that regard. It's nice to know that there's sensors so that when it's bright sunlight, it will come up and won't start.
Yeah.
So that's great. Sure.
Okay, Councillor Fegan?
Just wondering if instead of doing a percentage, is there a possibility of looking at it more advanced units rather than percentage of what's capable of design?
It's not really how the program works. But if you tell me what you want, I can figure out what it is percentage wise of that.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's just the way the program is. It
Okay.
asks for percentage of brightness.
Right.
So if you tell me we want this much, then we'll just.
I was just trying to find a way to make it easier for you, actually. Okay, fair enough.
And you know, it's always a work in progress,
Of
right?
course,
So
of course.
if you get brand new signs, my biggest complaint is the first week, right? Turn it down to 70% and 8 months later, because they do have a burn rate, like really bright first, and then the elements get involved and they do go a bit dim after, let's say, a year, then we ramp it back up and repeat. Like it's just part of the world.
So to that point, actually, Ruth, and just to address the one public comment we received. Is there much light projection that comes off of this thing?
There is more light projection, you know those old white signs?
Yeah.
with letters in?
Yeah.
There's no light sensor, there's more on that, like one projection. You can't up or down, it's just on.
Okay,
There's
Yeah.
way,
Yeah.
way more light on that, than there is on.
and that was what I thought was the case, but I thought
And that's what we
Double
try
check,
on.
yeah. Yeah, because I understand that the concern from the neighbor, I mean, yeah, 11 o'clock, you know, the sign shuts off, that'd be fine for me, but, you know, not so great for my 9-year-old.
Yeah.
It's his bedroom that's facing that, so the concern is, you know, if this is beaming light in, but it's pretty static, right, like it's not gonna be shining light.
No, it's very, it's like, when you see the Shelburne Library, they're doing a great job.
Yeah.
They've got a dark background, there's a white ash on it, it just looks like you're driving by a sign.
Yeah.
And you would never even know it was LED, it's not like really bright, they're just doing a great job, I think they're running it
At 80,
at 90. So.
okay, yeah, and I do like the way, Steve, that you've addressed that condition to say that, you know, if it's problematic down the road, I mean, it's subject to additional
I
adjustments.
thought it.
Councillor Wagner?
Yeah, I appreciate, you know, I know you know your stuff and because of the library and whatnot. For me, it's the location, right? Like I get it that they were granted to operate a business within that stretch, which is very heavily residential. And we have other businesses too, like the cafe, school days. And just down the road there is also a Shelburne Fresh Variety. So for me, it's just because it's so heavily residential, I'm worried that setting something like this, allowing this is just gonna open the floodgates for, you know, anything else, right? So now School Days wants one, now Shelburne Fresh wants one, the Curling Club wants one, the mosque down the street also wants one. So then it just becomes like bam, 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 like, and I get it if it's downtown core, I get it if it's the, over by Emerald Crossing, because it's very heavily retail over there or commercial over there. But for me, this is just, it's, I get it too, also, it's on, Owen Sound, which is a highway, but it's still, for me, it's just the location being so very heavily residential that, I can appreciate all of this. Again, 11 p.m. is an issue a little bit for me, and so is 7 a.m. Maybe 8 would be a little nicer for people who do shift work or whatever. But yeah, I just, the sign's beautiful, and I think it would be just as beautiful without the actual LCD part of it, so, I don't know, yeah, for me, I can't. You guys can all vote yes, and it'll go through, but I can't.
Counselor Sample.
Did I read there or did I read here, it's a sign not to be on during operating hours?
Yeah.
And then you said that another statement not to be on between 11 and 7.
We put in the condition not between.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not exactly sure what the business hours are, but,
They're not open till 11.
Yeah.
I think they are,
They might open at
They might open at 7,
Possible.
I think my point was usually at 8 there, so.
Yeah,
I think it's 8 till something, so. Can we put something in along that lines that it's not on during non-hours? Or it really dims up during non-business hours or something like that, so. And I know what you're saying, Ruth, that it dims right down with the darkness too, so. And I do agree with Councillor Wagner on, it is a residential area too, so. Permit this, and School Days is gonna come, Fresh Friday's gonna come, Curling Club is gonna come. So, but yeah.
Do we know what the actual operating hours are?
I don't, I think it won't be as late as what we put here. I believe that we put 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. Because I think that may appear in other bylaws as kind of the overnight time, like that's.
That's the MTO.
Yeah,
Most
and the noise.
And the
I think
noise
bylaw
Yes.
is that,
Yes.
so just, that's a frame of reference for us that.
Which is
Those
totally
8 hours are the most sensitive,
Yeah.
from a noise and lighting perspective.
yeah, and I think
But if-
that's understandable.
Again, that's not something that the applicant specifically requested, so if you wanted to shrink that down, you can really put any condition on the hours that you want. Sure.
Any other public comments or questions?
8 till 6, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Till 6.
So if they go 8 to 8,
Hours of operation.
yeah, if they go 8 to 8 minus
Just-
Saturday, that still covers.
Just put the hours of operation. Period. If it's 8 to 6, it's 8 to 6, if it stays open to 7, then it's 8 to 7. As it's open. But like, hours of
Do
operation.
you know, Ruth, like, is the intention that when the doors shut down, like, is there a switch they
It's all
turn it off? Okay,
programmed off.
okay, so it's
It
just,
doesn't actually get turned off, things like that.
Okay.
The signs want it on. they
Right.
want it on.
yeah,
So we just put in a
black
sign
sign, yeah,
and that plays and it's all on a program, you guys have the same program. It's all on a program that is just a ticker tape.
so you can set those hours to whatever, okay. All right. You wanna do?
Like it states in their hours of operation, I think we should just remove the 11 to 7.
Yes,
Stay with it, operations, operating hours.
and I agree, hours of operation.
That certainly kills the light in the bedroom window.
Just.
Okay.
So can we amend that to?
Yeah, so I think the easiest way is just to say, so it shall not be illuminated outside of the regular hours of operation.
Yeah.
facts, right?
All right.
I respect you all and Ruth's amazing. She knows her stuff and she's got great signs, but it's the location for me, unfortunately.
No, and that's fair.
Yeah.
Is there a motion then to approve that as amended, Councillor Sample? Seconded, Councillor Gushardi. So just to be clear, the three conditions now are that the sign will not be illuminated outside of the regular hours of operation. The brightness will not exceed 80%, and that is subject to further reduction if necessary based on sort of the feel of the community once it's going, and that there'll be no motion included in the sign. And then, of course, just the building permits must be paying signs direct. Okay, all in favor? Opposed? For the record? Carried. Okay. All right, thank you, Steve. Thanks, Ruth.
It's very hard to sit here and not put my.
Well, we appreciate the fact you're here to answer some of the questions.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
Have a good night. Safe drive.
Thank you, Ruth. All right, public question periods. Questions? Is there any submitted? No. Okay. All right, and next up, we have a presentation from the Shelburne Curling Club. We have Mr. Rob Scott joining us. Sorry to make you wait.
Well, no. Thank you for giving me your time to make a little presentation on behalf of the Shelburne Curling Club. For people that maybe don't know me as well, I've been a member of the Shelburne Curling Club since 2017 and on the board of managers there since 2018. I guess I'm the longest in the tooth person on the board there. Managers kind of come and go. So the club has asked me, the board has asked me to present to you. I guess the ultimate purpose of this, again, is along the lines of a minor variance. So some background information. If we go to our first slide there, our existing curling club was built before I joined the curling club around 2006 at a cost of $96,000. And it is beginning to show signs of age. Over the last couple of years, I've been on contract as the ice technician with the ice curling club. So very much aware of how well the cooling plant is working at keeping the ice cold. And last year, 2025, we had an extra $10,000 bill in repairs. And the same thing happened. It's not on the slide. The same thing occurred 2 seasons ago as well. So just evidence that the plant is showing its age. It's also obviously an older, less efficient plant that is available these days. High electrical costs. I think we budget between $40,000 and $50,000 a season for electricity just to run that. Yeah, it's big. So we think it maybe has about 5 years left in its lifespan. And so I have to give credit to Jeff Holmes, our club president at this time. He's been a driving force in getting ahead of the situation. Need to point out the Shelburne Curling Club is 100% membership funded. Our members, they pay their dues and fundraise. That's how we finance everything. On the next slide. Other than, we are very, very fortunate to have a lifetime member in the form of one Randy Chambers. And he has in the past sent down trillium fund requests and been successful every time doing that. So he's in the process of putting a trillium fund request together for a new cooling plant. We could get up to $200,000 in a trillium. New cooling plants, we've had a couple of interviews with three companies, and their costs range from $225,000 to $325,000. More details coming on that. The new cooling plant, and this is why this variance is required, it will be placed outside of the curling club. It is not feasible to put it in the same basement room where the current plant is. Now, each company we've spoken to, they have different designs and shapes of these exterior cooling plants. So that's part of of this equation as well. So next slide, please. There's the three companies. I think you guys have had access to this slide as well. The first company we spoke to were kind of the Cadillac company, Oxford Energy Solutions, at the bottom of that slide. They're like awesome. If we had a huge budget, I would have paid the check right there. The presentation was amazing, but it's a Cadillac. We're a small 4-sheet club. We don't need all the whistles and bells that would come with that. The next step down in cost is Bird Chilling Systems. And again, it's a good system. It's in use in some neighboring communities, still a cut above what I believe we require. So Custom Ice in the middle there has the least expensive cooling plant. It is interesting. They are able to use some of our existing equipment. The temperature controller is that thing known as a Honeywell, and an existing brine pump that's in the basement where the current plant is. We can still hook into that. That's part of the existing issue as well. That necessitates the location of this exterior plant to be most cost efficient. And all those prices there, we've estimated an additional $25,000 to pour a concrete slab and for electrical hookup to build a protective fence around it. A new word for me is the car barriers. What's that about? Bollards? Bollards. Yeah, so we would need to install those too, because it'll be, well, it's near the road. You'll see that some more pictures here. Next slide, please. Restating this again, plant's over 20 years old. It's running really good this year, but I keep trying to find wood to knock on all the time. So we are, again, trying to get ahead of a failure that would be catastrophic for the functioning of the current club. Next slide. So some benefits to getting obviously a new curling plant is energy savings. The Cadillac company, Oxford, their presentation package was gorgeous. They actually had data for their system, which suggested that a club like ours, a 4-sheet sand floor curling club, could save around $8,000 or $9,000 or $10,000 a year in electricity. So we look forward to that benefit from any plant that we get, and then feel good about the lessened effect on our climate. And third bullet down there, reliability. The board members don't have to walk on pins and needles worrying about any extra expenditures. Hopefully a new plant like this would function without extra maintenance costs. I have visited Mount Forest Curling Club. They received a Custom Ice plant 3 years ago, and I think no problems there. Minor little like knobs or something they had to fix, but nothing to do with the functioning of the plant as well. It hooked into their existing piping system as well. I guess many of you may know this already, members of the community. We have about 135 adult members at the curling club and 35, sometimes it seems like more, youth curlers. I'm the convener of youth curling on Thursdays, myself and Brianna Guzba. So it's a pretty vibrant group of people. So we really do, I mean, you know, hopefully you know what we are. We're pretty functioning unit inside the community. Next slide, please. So our board has decided to go with this Custom Ice cooling plant, and it's the dimensions required for it. It's not 17 by 14 feet. It comes on the back of a flatbed truck, and they just crane it off and set it on a concrete slab that we'd have to pour. But we need to have 3 feet of clearance around the cooling plant. So that dictates the 17 foot by 14 foot area. Beside the club now, this is clear in some future slides coming up. The existing fans, the exterior component of our plant, they're 5 feet out from the wall of the building already. So we need to go another 9 feet into that laneway between the curling club and fire hall. There's 24 feet clearance there now, and I think Jeff did some trigonometry there, Jeff Holmes or something like that, and figured out there'd be still a laneway, a pathway of 12 feet. So this is the dimensions of the custom ice. Of course, the more expensive versions, they're more sleek. They can be thinner, so they would take up less space at a cost of $75,000 to $100,000. Next slide, please. So there's a picture with some of Jeff Holmes' scribbles on it. The curling club, the long silver building, and the fire hall beside it. The little box that's drawn there is the approximate location of the cooling plant. And that diagonal distance there between the edge of that box, that would be the fencing around our cooling plant. Jeff calculates or measured that to still be 12 feet. We probably, just in looking at that picture, we probably could slide that box right out to the corner of the building, I think. Next slide gives, I went on, what's that, the street view, there you go. So there's the exterior components of our cooling plant there, those are condenser fans. And you can see a hydro pole back there, and the next slide shows another view. So there's that hydro pole, and that's a generator beside the fire hall with so that's there's the whole deal. That's that structure there, the little roof that's coming off of the main building, that would be removed. So our plant would sit right at that corner. And I don't think it's a good plan to put it, to wrap it around the O'Flynn side of the building. Speaking to Councilor Deschargy there, the fire trucks might not like that blockage in their view coming out of the hall and turning around the corner. Okay, then next slide, please. That's just my trip to the Knott Forest Curling Club. They got their fence around their plant. It shows you what it might look like, and another slide that shows it again. The next slide, please. Fencing beside it. It's sitting on a concrete slab under there. So, and one more slide. I think this is the diagram. I think Tyson Montgomery found this somewhere. And it shows, do you have the ability to zoom in on any portion of that? Yeah, maybe not. Yeah, okay. Maybe. Anyway, there's, if you zoomed in on where the rectangle is that's in the left side of that picture, that's the curling club. And right now the, what do you call it, property line is 5 feet out from the building. So that's where our condenser ends. So the variance would be to extend that out a bit more to accommodate this cooling plant. So I didn't even look at all my notes here. I rehearsed this last night by myself at the curling club a whole bunch of times. The other thing that our board, I mean, it's as I mentioned before, we're totally funded by our membership. So I feel kind of awkward doing this, but if there is monies to support a project like a cooling plant from the town of Shelburne, and also obviously from the other communities who have members that attend the Shelburne Curling Club, whether Melanchthon, Mulmer, Amaranth. I'm just making these stuff up because I don't even live around here. Don't shoot me, but I live in Dundalk. They let me out of the cage to come and do this presentation. But I have to tell you that since teaching at the high school in Shelburne for 18 years and then joined curling club like there's no better place for me to spend my winters than at the Shelburne Curling Club. So that's why we're hoping for whatever support we can get from our community there as well. Finally, we are having our 100th anniversary party on March 7th. I think you guys have all seen a flyer, something like that. Please, it would be wonderful to have everybody drop by, some old curling club members. That would be really good to drop in, throw a few rocks. If you've done that before, throw a few rocks. If you've never. Yeah, March 7th is Saturday. So from 3 o'clock until.
Until we're all
Eight in the
to
net.
do it.
Yeah, live music at 6 o'clock. I know the band.
How many touches are we allowed?
Oh, really?
None from you.
All right, fine.
So,
Thank you.
perfect. So just a couple of questions.
Sure.
In terms of timing, I know you're kind of estimating that you've got a couple of years left likely in the old system, but I mean, in an ideal scenario, when would you like to get this new system?
Well, since Randy Chambers has not sent the Trillium application yet, but I believe he has to send it
March
like
4th
in
is your,
March.
March 4th is your deadline.
Right,
Yeah.
so for us to move forward on this as quickly as possible, we would kind of need, I guess, I don't know what the term is for you, like a general approval of this variance, like now.
But yeah, so like you'd be hoping to do this like
It wouldn't
this
happen,
summer?
it wouldn't happen this summer.
Okay.
We don't get word back from the Trillium Fund until May or June.
Yeah.
And once we have that, then we contact Custom Ice, and they take 6 months to build their product. And so it would be June of 2026 where we would be doing this.
Solid.
Yeah.
So the obvious question, which I'm sure you've considered, but it has to be there, like it has to be on that side of the building.
Well, it's the best choice. It doesn't have to be. If we throw more money at it, we can put it anywhere, but that is right at the closest access to our brine pump. And if we were to put it similar to Mount Forest design right by the main entrance on the other side, that can be done, but we'd have to, the headers of the cooling system are at that end of the building. There'd be more piping. We would not be able to access our brine pump. It'd just be, it'd be cost more, and I'm not sure.
You're just throwing more money at it. The farther away from that location you go, because when I was the president there, we looked at redoing the pumping, that station too. And we looked at all the causes and everywhere that you could possibly put this, and
Everything already feeds in.
everything already feeds to that location, so you're kind of stuck with that location unless without a major overhaul.
Unless you throw lots of money at it. Like, I think the best place to put it would be right at the back of the
Well,
building.
I think it's north end, right?
But
It's
you
like,
you basically have to turn
Turn
the
everything.
headers
Yeah.
around to the other end and it'd be.
Flip the whole system, so you're tearing out all the sands, putting all the sand back in.
Councilor Fegan?
Just the simple question that the first thing that pops in my mind is, have you considered the sound of the new system? How loud it would be?
Yeah, we have discussed that at the board. The exterior fans that are there now, they're kind of noisy. I wondered about this question. I don't have data on what the decibels would be across the street. We do have a neighbor who lives across the street from us.
My only concern with.
There you
that.
go, yeah.
The only thing that I would suggest is maybe get a sound test at some point, if it becomes a complaint. There are sound barriers that you could.
Well, absolutely, that would be part of what we would be, we don't wanna disturb anybody, like sound barriers as opposed to that fencing that they had at Mount Forest. I think there's probably more robust things that we could put around it.
I can bring a meter up. What's existing?
Well, you don't want to bring a sound meter and listen to that giant.
That's a good idea, what the new system is gonna be.
I have to say,
It's just for the new system, I'm just thinking,
It gives us a threshold.
do we know if it's quieter than your existing fans?
It is spec.
Is that-
I don't know for a fact, I didn't hear the one in Mount Forest running when I was visiting there.
You're not getting complaints with the fans you got right now, so I don't think it's probably gonna be an issue.
I think it'll be louder than most fans.
It's actually quieter.
Really?
Yeah.
Excellent. Love to have Councilor Sample.
There you go.
Councilor Donato?
I was gonna say, Ed has heard those things, he lives across the road from me. He was at the fire hall that he had, he's heard those fans forever. And they're on the street. When I was on the board there and I was out at night when they were on,
Yeah,
you couldn't talk to the person for, you know, unless you were right up to his ear almost. The only thing that I was worried about is, I know they don't necessarily drive around that lane, the fire trucks very often. They come out through the front doors and they go back and forth, but when you get a big truck like the ladder truck, if it were to come around that laneway, is that 12 feet adequate room, and have you talked to the fire chief?
I haven't spoken to the fire chief. My understanding is that the only fire vehicle that requires access to that laneway is the water truck.
But I
And
get,
then I don't know.
I
How
would-
good a driver they have to be to go through.
Yeah, I would maybe talk to the fire chief.
Should we do that?
Yeah.
No, what I think likely we should do at this point, I mean, it's clear, you know, what the intention is, what you guys are looking for. I think at this point, connecting with staff, let staff coordinate with fire chief, have those discussions to make sure that there are not major concerns from their perspective. And then we can come back here. Steve, from a planning perspective, is there anything you want to add?
The one piece of this I haven't seen yet, and what was shown on screen there is the survey, and we just need to put down where that property line sits
Yeah.
relative to the building. This crosses the property line?
It's an encroachment, not a
Yeah,
variance.
then we need legal input on how we pay for that. Now, both properties are owned by the town of Shelburne. There's a mystery as to why they're separate properties. I think that probably had to do with a lease or something on the building from long ago. But technically, you can't construct over a property line unless the two property owners, in this case, it's the same party, agrees with itself.
But it may not be.
It does mean that if you went to sell either property at any point in the future, it would be the complex or an encumbered property. The variance process itself, it's simply reducing the side yard setback. We know what that looks like. It can't happen as quickly as talking about here, but it's about a 60 to 90-day process just by virtue of the notice requirements in the Planning Act. To reduce the side yard. We know it can't meet the side yard because the existing building doesn't meet the side yard requirement. If it didn't go any further into the side yard than the fans do and that enclosure, then there would be an issue because it's going to need relief from the file. But on the face of it, you know, I can't obviously comment too much without having an application. Right. It's only a small part of the building. It's not terrible in mind. So we want to get comments from the fire department to make sure that they're not going to be concerned with it. And obviously any comments from the public. Yeah, that standard meeting, community adjustment to receive comments.
I think it's because the Bob hasn't mentioned. Getting to them quite a lot, but it's probably quite a problem.
Thoughts?
So the other thing that you would know or take into consideration and external to this is we are under review. There is a request in a capital budget for fire right now for $15 million for an expanded fire hall. We have to properly evaluate the existing site and space at that front of the building and perimeter part of the building and any renovation or expansion. Utilized. So until that is fully vetted, making this kind of commitment is probably unrealistic and not viable. So we have to review that. I know the point is your costs. You know, savings on this side of the equation is going to transfer costs to the other side. So that has to be acknowledged, and we haven't even started that process yet. We're in a process of looking at
a withdrawal from the Shelburne District Fire Board and reinstatement of municipal town fire department. And one of the critical things in terms of what council evaluated is capital cost to earn. Whereby it won't be potentially 15 million, which is an enormous cost if you're paying almost $8.5 million of that. We were looking at much smaller envelope cost to control costs for the taxpayer. So I know that doesn't help you, but it certainly has to be a core component of an evaluation by staff to ensure that this $100,000 potential cost savings for you and equipment choices doesn't spiral into an extra $1 million potentially for the town in terms of land. So I'm sorry,
No,
that-
that makes
so-
sense to me.
so I think it's really important that you meet with staff, that we overview all of the complexities associated with, you know, your request in the site, recognizing that reallocating servicing internally just doesn't make a lot of sense. But potentially seeing some other solutions where you're just gonna have to postpone your timeline. And I guess to the mayor's point, if you've got hopefully 2 years, then maybe it's not a trillion application 6, it's a trillion application.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
Well, that's
it's
way above my pay
Because once
grade
you
there.
put that abutment out, irrespective of variances
Yeah.
and property lines, that could have a significant impact on flexibility that's required for that property to accommodate an expansion.
So for Rob's next steps, you have his contact,
Yeah, so we'll,
coordinate something and.
yeah, I mean, we wanna understand as well what your options are, cost impacts aside on what that footprint may look like if you didn't have to have that done. And if that resolves the problem, because that lane may be critical, we're not sure on future use and our need.
The good news.
No, not all bad, it's just we need to look at. some-
Yeah,
that's-
exactly. We don't wanna give a commitment
Yeah.
premature.
We're not saying,
So, yeah.
just,
Yeah.
we need to do more work.
There's.
Yeah, good thought. No, but the good news is from the funding perspective, and you had mentioned that sort of at the tail end of the conversation, I think during that meeting, you can maybe guide Rob towards our grant process. The county also has a grant process for groups like the Curly Club.
Yeah.
The other surrounding municipalities, I think some of them have formal grant programs, others are a little less formal, but to your point, they have members that are using the club. I think, you know, definitely reach out to them and see if they can contribute.
100%. Sorry, do you have charitable? Do you issue tax receipts for television?
I doubt it.
Yeah. All I know is we're a nonprofit corporation, so
No problem.
So it's not like, okay.
did that answer your question, just
Yeah,
saying
you
that?
don't, if you don't issue tax receipts, then. So if somebody gave you $100, if you don't issue them tax receipts, you're not sure.
So, nonprofit is
But
different.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing that my message to Randy Chambers would be,
We'll see how the
it would be,
Tee up a meeting with staff,
yeah.
Randy and you guys.
Well, yeah, Randy's
Randy will understand.
somewhere warm right now, so,
Hopefully not Mexico.
Yeah, hopefully.
yeah,
Yeah.
Larry's there.
He'll be stranded there.
Very hostile in
No.
Mexico.
Yeah.
He's in North
He doesn't come back
Carolina.
till June 8th.
We're going. So I don't need to give Randy a yes or no here, yeah, it sounds like I should give him a no on doing any more work towards the training fund. I don't think.
I wouldn't
say
spot
that.
without.
Yeah, I don't know what the requirements are under that
Requirements,
application.
usually, like,
Just
first.
Like if he applies and we receive the grant, and then we say, oh, sorry,
Depends, yeah, there's a
Depends
timeline
on the timeline.
tied into
Check and see
using.
if there's a
the-
well, Randy will know what that is. I mean, we already do get a deferral because we're a seasonal
Right.
facility. So normally I think trillium grants have to be used like, yeah, you're spending it.
This is
We got a
all
year.
every trillion, and I'm sure Randy's aware of this. In order to apply for a trillion grant, property owner must give permission. We are the property, And you have no authority to make that application
Right.
without the proper. For that, you usually have to sign a letter.
Yeah.
And confirm that that is a viable, approved.
Gotcha.
That's
So that, if you don't do that, you won't even be able to submit.
Yeah.
Step back.
So yeah, have him touch base with staff.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Rob.
There's your education for today.
I learned a lot. If you're coming curly on March South, wear clean shoes, okay?
So we'll get, have everything, so you're easy to find.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Thank you for all you do.
All right, can I have a motion to receive the
Thank you, Rob.
presentation?
Have a good night.
Councillor Sample, seconded by Councillor Bernardo, all in favor? Carried. Okay, all right, council inquiries. Councillor Wagner.
All right, so nothing like too crazy, just being appointed now onto the CDRC board. It's come to my attention that we had a vacancy, and we've had a vacancy since 2023. So I'd like to fill that because we're supposed to have enough voting members, right? We're supposed to have 4. And so when 1 is gone, that brings us down to 3, and then if someone can't show up, or if someone isn't consistently showing up, it brings us down to 2 or maybe even 1. And I mean, really, we should be having our respective number of votes available for as best we can, right? So, yeah, so my idea was just, I spoke with staff about this as well, and we kind of came to the conclusion that perhaps maybe we don't worry so much about another public member for the remaining of the term, because it's just this year. That maybe we just put on another counselor for the time being, because the rules that apply to committees and boards are different. So we can have more than 3 or 2 council members on a board. And just my thought moving forward as well, which I'm not sure how this could be implemented, but in the new term of council, perhaps again, that should be something that is revisited. And it's just becoming very difficult to have public members actually attend meetings. So perhaps at that point, it gets turned into a council-led initiative where it is council members that are, on the CDRC board entirely. And then that way it's part of their duties, and they know this coming in, if they're running, that they're, there's a potential where they will be on multiple boards if that's the case. But yeah, so I don't know kind of how you want to go about this,
Who
but.
wants the job?
I
I'm already there.
know, I'm already there.
I'll take it again.
Oh, 13.
Well, or I know Len had brought it up as well, so.
I was on it. I was on the board when I was 18. Okay. Seriously, this is
How long ago was that?
that was like,
I didn't realize the facility was there.
there were complaints about the number of parking spaces. And I had suggested that to increase the parking spaces, that we
Take down the burn?
we removed the burn, and DC Broderick, it was like I had tried to desecrate his burial plots, and it was not
Wasn't well received, let's
it
go
wasn't
that way.
well received at all.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the design of the,
Yeah.
yeah, so
We
So-
really never.
which we've used once.
Don't use, yeah.
So let's not go into this.
No.
Do you want the job?
I can do the job, sure. Yeah,
If you want it, you can.
I have the time.
So why?
I-
Depends on price.
Yeah, I mean, I'll
It
take
is
it.
at 5:30.
We gonna have a campaign here, or? Okay.
I'm not gonna fight it for you. I've been there, I was there for 10, 12 years, I don't.
All right.
You know what?
Then in the interest of moving things along, sorry. I was just going to do that. I was just going to do that. I was going to make a motion to nominate Councillor Gishardi to the CRDC or CDRC board for a seconder for Share, Councillor Fegan. Okay. All in favor? Carried. Your job. Yeah. What's old is new again.
So our first meeting is Wednesday.
I'd say 5:30, okay.
Yeah,
Done.
5:30 on
Are
Wednesday.
we Zoom, are we
This
in
Wednesday,
person?
in person.
In person, at
Yeah.
the rink,
Yep, so just upstairs in the pool view.
On
Yeah.
top of
Okay.
berm.
on top of the berm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll give Kim.
And you can go back,
the only time we use it.
and you can go back and you're not 18 anymore.
This is, I'm definitely not 18.
All right, was that
Yeah, that
Okay.
was it for me, was just,
Okay.
yeah.
Councilor Bernardo?
Jim, unfortunately, this weekend, I had so many complaints on, secondary roads, if you wanna call them that, within the town. You could drive down and you felt like you were driving down a country road. There were ruts. I drove with my truck and I actually was in tracks, and the truck was going side to side. Okay, they were terrible. It's melting, it's mild, you cannot allow them to get into that shape. I'm telling you, my ears were burning, people just coming at me complaining about the condition of the roads and why were we not plowing.
Through your worship. That was picked up by, senior staff on the weekend. It looks like, operations staff missed some of those secondary roads. Specifically the ones I was over, Monica Court, Old Village Lane, Ivy Gardens and Canfield.
Muriel as well.
Park,
He's Muriel added that list.
Yeah,
Are-
so
there's quite
there
a
was a
few.
few in there, so that was brought up to operational staff, so they have been updated on that, because Saturday was a good day to do it, it was a little warmer, they could have slashed it off. Now we're back into the colder temperatures, and we do have a shortage of salt right now, so it's a little difficult to get. We're gonna put some salt to it and then cut put the cutting edge of the blades and shear things.
Yeah,
It wasn't just here, I was in Alliston over the weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's
There
the
is the
same
melt,
thing, I mean,
the
it
melt and the.
yeah,
Freeze,
yeah.
to get it away.
thaws and then freezes, and like you say, creates those ruts, and I had the same thing in Alliston in my truck, and you know, you're being cold all over the road.
I actually had one person say to me, if you want to find out how to wreck your suspension, just drive down the road.
And perhaps this is something as council we need to have staff look into with regards to delivery of service, right? So, obviously 2026's budget is done or whatever, like but moving forward, maybe for 2027, when we're revisiting budget or whatever in the summer, maybe Jim or whatnot, you can kind of come at us with estimated costs to up the level of service, right? I mean, it's the only thing I can think of.
Through your worship, our budget is getting down there for this year. We're just updated this morning. We're at 34,000 short of finishing our snow removal budget off this year. So we may have to look at that with the last couple of years that we had, but this was an operational step through this weekend where it should have been covered, so.
Yeah, of course, of course. I think it's just the volume of snow we've gotten now over the last couple of years, and if that seems to be the trend that's continuing, then we might need to look at our budget.
And if I can, done. I know we've cut down the banks. But I don't know where we're gonna put any more snow, because between what comes off the road and what goes on the banks, those banks are filled again.
They're awful.
They're awful right now, and the road is narrowing in again. If you park a vehicle on the road, the other vehicle has to stop because you cannot go two vehicles in one. Even tonight coming down William Street, I had to stop because there was a car coming the opposite way and
Yeah, you can't,
I fell over.
there's no way.
There's no two-way
Yeah.
on those roads.
Through your worship, the streets that were slashed off, primary ones, they did get more snow put back, so if we hadn't done that snow removal, we would be in trouble again. We're out watching that right now for the sight lines again, and hopefully with the weather the way it's supposed to be over the next little bit, we should see some reduction in the height just with melt, but we are watching it again, so.
The secondary roads, this is bad.
So, through the mayor, we originally did service delivery, followed by an operation. There was a huge focus on operation. I think the piggyback on what Councilor Wagner just said, and I know when Councilor Sample asked us to not implement the on-street parking because it wasn't necessary because of the mild winters. and later, we're seeing this chronic shift on. And we have to adapt to those service levels based on, so we can create these expectations which may fall apart. But I think we will look at, given it's not unique for us, a secondary ops review. Look at what are our resource requirements that are needed in terms of humans and fleet to expand the reactions. Now, if there were no snafus or roads and bed. But just because, you know, we spent $120,000 or more last year on big storage is a problem. I think we have to start accommodating a plan for as council to look at whether or not those budgetary resources and how much we're devoting to this area increase in response to not only what can sometimes, and I'll be fair, be unreasonable expectations of the community. Like at home, they would be able to do this with like snapping their fingers. But we also can't do it unless we're resourced appropriately. And some of those will still be impossible, but I think we have to shift. And we'll look at that. So if council wants the level of standard, that's the standard you will get, but you just have to be willing to have that investment paid for in taxation or adjust other costs and but this is becoming an ongoing issue. We know and we appreciate how frustrating it is for people. The sight lines were a significantly real issue, and we'll just have to work, I guess, in a new world of welcome back to the 70s.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For now.
For those of you that were around in the 70s, yeah.
Mr. Trump would say, so I have global warming.
Uphill.
Okay, no, I think that's,
About a mile
I
wide.
think that's the way to do it, because I mean, having budget overrun year after year and trying to address things sort of on an ad hoc basis is not a great way of operating.
The quick one.
Yep.
And probably directed to Jim again. Is there a way of increasing the visibility of the left turn at William and Main Street? Maybe huge neon signs. I mean, it's,
Yeah,
I get,
It's
I don't know what else.
yeah, we've got two signs there.
We have joke, I know, you know how you go into the airport parking, and if you go out the wrong way, it shreds your tires? That's not a viable solution, but that might be the only solution.
Yeah, because there's lots of signs.
Yeah,
there's at least two signs.
Yeah.
They know the signs are there, they just don't.
It's willful ignorance in my opinion. I mean, yeah, people see the signs, they just, you know, would rather ignore them because it shaves a few seconds off their.
Well, a lot of them come down,
What
later down.
what we can do is ask the OPP to monitor that corner, because that is an issue at that corner.
Yeah.
And speak to Mike and have an officer monitor that.
Every once in a while,
Yeah,
I see an app somewhere. So.
Yeah, because, and somebody's gonna start crossing.
Yeah.
You know,
We do
and-
have cameras there, like not speak, we have
No,
our
no.
own cameras, so we always have the evidence of all the number of people that make that left. And they know they should.
Right, but if they've got no indication unless, I mean, if they don't see the no left turn sign, odds are they're probably not seeing the flashing lights for the person crossing.
If they don't see the no left side, then they should not be driving.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah. It's like right there.
Yeah, like I said, I don't think it's an issue of them not being
I
in.
think it's an issue.
Yeah, they sort of take a quick look around, and if it's safe and there's no police presence, they're gonna do it. So, yeah.
Well, when I'm turning left off of 89 on William, and I see the guys trying to go left, I just wait.
Yeah.
They're going left, so
Yeah.
he gets frustrated, then he goes right. The whole traffic up now.
That's where they go. Sure.
All right, I just wanted to mention quickly that Dufferin County Canadian Black Association hosted the Black History Month celebration here on Saturday night. Councillor Gachardi was a big help yet again with the audio visual equipment. Councillor Wagner and myself were here. Great event, so kudos to them for putting on another good event.
It's
I don't know.
as well.
Yes, town staff was instrumental. I don't know if they got a final head count, but I mean, it wasn't
had
a
100.
hundred, but
Yeah,
it was pretty full.
It was full, which was
they
nice.
had 120. 126
Okay,
signed up or like tickets.
yeah,
And I mean, I'd say there's 100 there.
yeah, I mean, with
Yeah.
75 to 80% capacity, I would say,
Yeah.
so, yeah, but it was a good event.
That's awesome.
Good. All right, on to our regular reports. So the first report is from our CAO regarding the Shelburne Public Library Building and Property MOU with the town.
Thank you, Mayor Mills. So this is a report that's being brought back from August 25th, 2025. Council had originally approved and which staff drafted, which had the review regarding property and building maintenance of the library. There were a number of issues that were arising with the maintenance of the library building, which is owned by the town, and to clarify responsibility roles. There was a 1991 agreement that was referenced in that report that actually was the guiding document and itemized that all costs associated capital and operating were those of the library by de facto of the board. So we worked with the library after council approved that agreement, used some revisions and changes that they requested. They're not significant. They've been adjusted and staff comfortable with them. There were some conversations most recently, and that's why it's taken this one back to you regarding insurance, which we didn't support in terms of transferring all of those costs for general peril and liability to the town of Shelburne wide. So that didn't. So the attached agreement is there, and we're recommending that it be supported. I am going to note yet again that one of the outstanding issues that was identified in the August report and that staff continues to look into, a bit of a mystery, is the governing authority of the board, particularly as it relates to the representation from other municipalities voting on the board, which in many ways is more resembling a union library. So we think that the transition somehow was around 90, 91. And we want to get to the root of that to bring back to this council an overview of what needs to be done or not done based on the history and have that clarified, because it is really important to these kind of issues. So our goal is to hopefully resolve that in 2026, if not early 2027, but we think we can knock it off in 2026 because it also has a bearing on its representation going forward. I guess one of the key issues that we've identified, and I'll just use Grand Valley as one example, is their library does have representation from other municipalities on the board through agreement. However, the bylaw is that of the town of Grand Valley, and the authority to appoint the board members is the council of the town of Grand Valley. It is not the independent municipalities running their own appointment system and telling others who those people are. So I think that's the difference. And we know in other communities where they provide service to adjacent budding communities, there is the ability for a resident of that municipality who is provided a service by that municipality to also participate in the process in which that town administers and then appoints. So there's just a different model of governance. So in a union library, it is formally usually all capital and all operating is proportionally shared, or whatever formula is established to manage that facility or property. It's not simply, like we've just inherited and voluntarily done so, that all of operating is proportionally shared, but all of capital now is being transferred to the town of Shelburne. And one more thing that we found out through the process, and we just didn't realize, is that there was a building reserve at the time when we started this process of about $187,000, which then we suggested that it would be most appropriate to deplete that first in order then to fund the capital needs before the town of Shelburne's annual contribution of $50 started to be utilized. However, and it's referenced in the report, there was an acknowledgement that they need to play significant catch up with some of the interior building needs. So for example, the KTH room refresh. There's equipment and cables and Stephanie that really need to be updated. So it is a fair request that reserve be retained for those kinds of needs. But there was an agreement for two immediate needs. One was a furnace, And one was the door, and one was some eaves troughs that will be funded from that reserve.
Yeah.
Okay, so that really is the heart of it, but it has solidified and cleaned up the ambiguity on the capital side of.
Questions for Denise? Nope, okay. So the motion is to receive the report, authorize the clerk and myself to sign revised MOU on behalf of the town. And then just to clarify that once that new MOU is signed, the 91 MOU will be rescinded. So, Whitburn seconded, Councillor Fegan, seconded by Councillor Cushardy. Favor? It's carried. Okay. Next up is a report from our treasurer, which is the 2025 council statement of remuneration. Want to speak to that at all, Carrie?
Here, this is the annual report, just detailing all of the remuneration and meeting such that council attended and if any conferences were attended. As well, it's noted here that the mayor and the deputy mayor's conference expenses are covered under the county government, so they may have attended a show on this particular schedule. It also includes that of the board of public board members outside of council that sit on various.
Okay. All right. Questions on this? Okay. All right. The motion to receive then. Nato. Yeah, Councillor Wagner. Favor? Carried. Right, next is another report from our treasurer. This one is the development charge year-end report and treasurer's attestation. Remind us why we have to do this every year.
So it is a requirement under the Development Act. And they do have stipulation for what we're supposed to be spending, collecting. The reporting of interest, if these funds are put in their own bank account. Receive interest, so we have to record any transfers in and out. And so in 2025, we took out $0.4 million in fees. The majority of that did go towards the Middle Park project, right? Remainder of that is annually spent on debt repayments. And if you'll recall in the DC study that we just recently did, we also combined the services of police and fire to protective services. So in this chart, you'll see that the line item has been consolidated together, and we did purchase that bylaw vehicle out of that. And the administration line is showing a negative amount. The reason for that is prior to the DC study that we just completed, the province had taken out studies as being an eligible item to collect for. So we've expended all of the funds that we had set aside for studies, and during that 5-year gap, we weren't collecting any new DC money. But now they put studies back into it again, so if and when we ever do collect development charges again, that account will replenish itself.
Okay. Questions? Okay, motion received. Sample by Councillor Cushardy. All in favor? Carried. And the last report is again from our treasurer for the water and wastewater collection policy amendment.
Mayor, council will remember last July that came before you with a report about water arrears and collections and shut-offs in the process. And at that time, we requested to implement a trial period where we changed the process of how we went about notifying residents that water shut-offs were going to occur. We were hoping that at the time that the shortened timeline would change people's habits. And so we found that it didn't. So we have met again and are further recommending more changes to the collection policy that would include that we discontinue water shutoffs. The number has grown to beyond our capabilities to manage. Not just the actual physical shut off, but the lead time that it takes to get out all the notifications. Today, for example, we had 6 staff out for probably 3/4 of the day, putting door knockers on those doors, just to let them know that they reached their 90 days and that if they don't pay by a certain date, it's going to be rolled to your tax account, because right now we can't do water shutoffs. 300 is the record, that's the most. And to have 6 staff out on foot all day, entering onto people's property who are not welcoming, and you can't blame them. But we're finding just even things where a lot of the homes that they approached were abandoned, and the snow is not shoveled, so they're, but climbing over snowbanks to get to the front door, and it's not safe. So we've proposed that we stop doing water shutoffs at all. And in the report, I've indicated page 3 how much the water and sewer arrears have increased over the past 3 years, and they have gone up another 14%. We also did a survey of other municipalities that still administer their own utility billings, and the majority of them have been transferring to taxes for quite some time. And it seems common to do it twice a year, right, where you do the tax billing, so that when that tax bill goes out, any water arrears that are current on there. The other thing that we're trying to avoid too is having our staff be in the middle of a landlord-tenant dispute. Because that's the other problem that we're finding, is a lot of these properties are tenanted. And I think I mentioned this last July too, is that, there are the odd landlord that phone us up and ask us to disconnect the water because they want tenants to leave. We can't do that. We're not going to get in the middle of that. So just rolling it to taxes is the simplest solution for us, and then it becomes the landlord's issue and their tenant. So that keeps us out of it. Now, the other thing that I do have to let you be aware of is that in 2024 we did move from a low level risk to moderate for taxpayers. And I've also indicated in here that our tax arrears went up 14% over 2024 as well. So these aren't numbers that we're liking to see, but we also don't see any change in the other direction happening anytime soon. We offered extended hours last fall, and I've identified here, stayed open until 7 p.m. On tax due dates. We also opened early for some of the weeks where we did have water shut off notices go out. We honestly expected we'd come in the next morning and there'd be a line at the door to pay to get the water turned back on. Well, again, there have been problems, right? So staff are recommending that we continue to perhaps offer extended hours on tax due dates. If by chance there is anyone who needs to come in, not just to pay their water bill, but also tax. So in the actual policy itself, I noticed an amendment that we need to make on page 5, different from what we've identified in the agenda package. We had stated that the municipality will offer extended hours. I would like to change that to may offer extended hours, and in the yellow highlight, dates and hours for the extended service will be clearly communicated. We had on there, will be outlined in the final notice, but with the discontinuing of water shutoffs, there is no final. And we were open last Thursday night for tax due date. We were open till 7, we had nobody in. And it wasn't a bad weather night either, so anyways, we'll just play that by ear and see if we continue to stay open tax due dates or not, so that's why I wanna change that to will, from will to may. And if we do decide to, it will be welcome. The other change, or not a change, I just wanted to identify on page 6, where we said that the town will follow payment arrangements, under section 12 for our responsibilities, and that we may transfer taxes due to non-payment or may disconnect services due to non-payment under extenuating circumstances. Wanted to leave that in there because there are some times where we may need to go in and shut the water off, and whether it's to do with non-payment or not remains to be seen. But the County of Dufferin does offer a program for low income, fixed income, just to assist with rent and utilities if you qualify. And one of their qualifications for making a water payment on behalf of the resident is that they have to have received a disconnection notice. So we just wanted to leave that in there so that if that case presents itself, we can produce a disconnection notice. How do you decide whether or not that person's eligible to receive assistance from them? So back to the mention that we delivered over 300 notices today. So if by the end of the week we don't receive any more collections, which we will, there will be quite a few this week. We're looking to roll $236,000 in over 90-day water arrears to the tax for this period. To give you an idea of what it means that we may be rolling that much 6 times a year to the tax account. The other issue we're having is with when properties do sell, we're having a lot of lawyers that are just relying on title insurance. They're not requesting water certificates. Mostly it's out of town, out of county lawyers that are doing that. It's not the local. They don't care if water's not paid, and they just want tax certificate. So you'll recall when we did our fees and charges bylaw, we added an additional fee in there, or if you are requesting a tax certificate that pertains to a sale, you must also receive a water read. So we're getting a lot of pushback on that as well. So by rolling the the water arrears to the taxes, when they get the tax certificate, they'll have the water arrears. Right. So there are benefits to this. So yeah, so I don't know if anyone has any questions about the changes that we're suggesting. The motion will have to change because I've recommended some further changes to the policy that council would adopt the election policy as presented and amended.
Very good.
Okay.
Make it perfect. To me, makes logical sense. My only concern is rolling the water and sewer onto the taxes eventually, if they're not paying the taxes as well. We're gonna end up in property sales. And
Yeah,
we
that's
will be the ones forcing it, correct?
That was my concern that way too. I was gonna say, like, what's the threshold here when we start to see these high numbers of tax arrears
3
due
years.
to you know, yeah, like due to potentially water and sewer. Kind of bumping that number up, right, before then we start getting into the aspect of where we now need to look at selling the property or. You know, retaining the property to sell, to pay those, so I was a little concerned with that.
So
It's
hang
3
on,
years.
before we jump ahead, we have a motion from Councilor Bernardo, is there a seconder for that? Councilor Sample, okay, full talk, okay.
And this question is on the water and sewer, but is it 2 years on tax arrears?
Yes, correct. It is, the legislation changed 3 years to 2. And we are actually just preparing to send 50 files to registration 2020.
That doesn't mean that they're going to tax it.
No, but
No, the banks usually step in.
So the 14% increase that we've seen on tax arrears and water fees. Do you have a sense from other municipalities in the area, what their experience is?
Not within Governor County. I think our problem was due to COVID. We experienced with a lot of out of town landlords.
right. And the high cost of prices at the time.
And some of them are for sale, some of them aren't, but they're not even able to sell them for what they bought.
Yeah.
The other thing that's increasing our tax arrears too is a lot of the mortgage companies have stopped paying property taxes for them. And that was the biggest increase for us, is that when that happened.
I didn't hear that.
But having like Mayor says though, when we do send it for registration, the mortgage companies gently.
Okay,
I guess it just kind of keeps getting rolled in if they just don't keep paying it. I mean, at one point, I guess if you, like you said, if there's an abandoned property, there's gonna be no water bills, I guess, right? Because there's no water usage, even though it's not turned off, it's, nobody's using it, so. I
They
assume at
still
that
get
point.
their base charge.
And there's potentially base charge, yeah.
Yeah.
Still fits a little.
Right, and then if the water was turned off, would that base charge stop at that point? No, okay.
The fee and usage fee. Zero, you
Right, okay, but that's base regardless, so, okay, yeah, so I guess if they're not paying, it just continuously gets rolled into the taxes then.
It's just so counterproductive for our staff to have to go out.
should be,
Yeah.
and not safe, yeah.
And so there is a fee to roll it to taxes, but it's a cheaper fee than it is to go out and shut the water off
Turn it back.
and then come back.
Gotcha.
And Jim, it's typically your staff that's out doing that, right? And as
Yes,
that's
that's
got
very
nice.
nice. It usually happens when people come home from work too, so it's after hours, so you got staff all the time. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Okay, so we have the motion on the floor, and any further discussion, all in favor? It's carried. Okay. All right, any notices of motion? Okay, anything from communications?
Yeah. Number six, oh boy.
Number 6, yeah, 5 and 3. I'm just saying, it's just quick little, you know.
Okay, so I'll start with Councilor Bernardo on 6, and then we'll jump over here. Okay, sorry. Let's see.
Yeah.
School bus safety, yeah, I'd like to support that motion for North Springville and Wolford.
Yeah. Okay, so Councilor Bernardo is making a motion, support, is there a seconder for that? Sure. Councilor Fegan. Okay, discussion. All in favor? Carried. All right, Councilor Wagner, you said 5.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
just, it wasn't really, sort of fully discussed in here.
So I can give a
Right,
little
yeah.
bit of background on this,
Yeah.
we have passed a motion at county council regarding this. I
Yeah.
think Melanchthon was just supporting the county
Yeah.
motion, to be honest, and because county council's passed a motion, I don't think it's
We
necessary
don't
for all
need
of
to.
us to do it, but.
Okay, cause I was kind of like, it sounds like it's probably a good idea.
Yeah.
But then when I was kind of reading it, I'm like, they didn't really tell me what it was kind of about, but I'm assuming, it's good. And then, just sort of to support the town of Orangeville's resolution regarding Bill 21 for Protect Our Food Act.
Yeah.
So it's just, it's, if you read it, it's kind of fairly straightforward. So
Okay.
it'd just be a support.
Okay, so motion by Councillor Wagner, seconder for that. Sample. All in favor? Carried. Okay, anybody else? Okay, a motion to receive the remaining items, Councillor Sample. Councillor Wagner. All in favor? Carried. Okay, next we have, I think, a relatively short closed session. Yeah, so as we've done before, some of our staff members are going to head out so they can get home. So there won't be any live streaming when we come back into open session, but it's really just the confirming by. So can I have a motion then, in accordance with section 239 sub 2 of the Municipal Act, enter into closed session to discuss personal matters about an identifiable individual. Councillor Donato, second by Councillor Shardy. Favor?